My husband cheated on me with his personal trainer, PT, and I'm planning sweet revenge by befriending his PT and returning all the favors. I'm Victoria, 31. I had what I thought was a dream job, a cozy home, and a marriage that felt like a romance novel. But then, out of the blue, Aaron, my normally laid-back husband who'd rather spend evenings with a cold beer in front of the TV, started to change. He was like a chameleon. One day he was your typical beer-loving couch potato, and the next, he traded in the remote for dumbbells and was hitting the gym with a zeal that, frankly, wasn't just a casual, maybe I'll lose a few pounds, kind of thing. No, Aaron was going at it like he was training for the Olympics or something, going to the gym 5 days a week, sometimes twice a day. I first noticed something was wrong when he started going to the gym at odd hours. Got to beat the rush, he'd say, with a kind of manic gleam in his eye that I'd never seen before in the guy who used to make fun of my yoga sessions. Suddenly, he was talking about protein shakes, muscle recovery, and rest days like he'd been doing it all his life. His wardrobe changed, too. Out went the old college tees and sweatpants, and in came the sleek, high-tech workout clothes. He even started wearing a new cologne that smelled more like something a suave young trainer would wear, not the man I married. I tried to talk to him about his sudden obsession, trying to figure out if something was triggering it. Was he having a late quarter-life crisis? Each time, he brushed me off with a quick peck on the cheek and a vague, just trying to stay healthy, babe. But his eyes darted away, quickly hiding something I couldn't put my finger on. And it wasn't just the physical changes. His phone was suddenly always face down. I also noticed our bank statements had charges from a high-end sporting goods store. Money was being spent on fancy gym equipment and supplements. The man I knew who would rather die than miss a Friday night pizza was now all about carb cycling and Sunday meal prep. Then there were the late returns home. The gym was supposed to be a 10-minute drive away, but Aaron would be gone for hours. Traffic was a nightmare, he'd say, or met an old buddy for a protein shake. These excuses seemed plausible at first, but as the weeks wore on, they grew thin. The warmth in his voice cooled, and the distance between us grew, filling the space with a tension I couldn't ignore. That's when the dots began to connect in my mind, painting a picture I didn't want to see but couldn't look away from. My husband, the man who promised to grow old and gray with me, was slipping away, turning into a stranger with every sweaty gym session. My gut just wouldn't settle that day. The whispers of doubt and the tickle of suspicion had become too loud to ignore. So, I did what anyone would do when plagued by the creeping fear that something in their marriage was amiss. I decided to follow Aaron. I told myself it was to put my mind at ease, to prove my suspicions unfounded. But honestly, deep down, part of me feared that I was right. I parked a few rows back from his usual spot at the gym. My heart was pounding as I watched him pull in. I remember thinking how absurd it all was, spying on my own husband. It felt like something out of a cheesy detective show, not something I should be doing on a bright Wednesday morning. But there I was, hunched over in my seat, baseball cap pulled low over my eyes, hoping against hope that I was just being paranoid. And then she appeared. Monika, his personal trainer. I recognized her from the Christmas party hosted last year. She was hard to forget, with her bright smile and energetic vibe that seemed to captivate everyone around her, my husband included, apparently. I watched with a sinking heart as they passed her car, not far from where I was hiding. Her casual smile didn't prepare me for what happened next. It was only a moment, but it felt like an eternity. Aaron looked around carefully before he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't a peck or a friendly kiss. It was passionate, the kind you don't share with just anyone. It felt like a punch in the gut as I watched, hiding behind my car window, my hands shaking and a lump in my throat. Devastated didn't even begin to cover how I felt, betrayed, broken, foolish, all that and more. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing and my heart shattered. That night, as Aaron lay sleeping next to me, oblivious to the storm raging inside me, I did something I never thought I would. I reached for his phone, which he'd casually left on the nightstand. His carelessness was now another knife in my back. The phone lit up, and there it was, the evidence as clear as day. Texts from Monika, so casual, so intimate. They spoke like old lovers, comforting and familiar. The messages cut me to the quick, each word a confirmation of my worst fears. I hope your husband remains in the dark. We have a strict policy regarding our distance from clients, and I'd rather not have any trouble. I adore you, my dear. I am waiting for you. What is your estimated time of arrival? How about dinner at our favorite restaurant? The menu has some of the tastiest foods that are gluten-free and low in carbohydrates. Reading them was like reading lines from a script for a life I was no longer a part of. How could he? How could she? They knew about me, yet it didn't stop her, and it didn't stop him. I put the phone down, my hands shaking. My mind was a mess of anger, pain, and an overwhelming sense of loss. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? These questions haunted me through the night, keeping me awake as I lay next to the man who had promised to love and cherish me. Now he was a stranger in our bed. I could barely get through 3 or 4 messages before I gave up because I was so disgusted. I didn't want Aaron to think something was wrong when he went to check his phone. I pretended to be asleep when he got up to go to the bathroom. I took a deep breath, put his phone back on the end table, and tried to fall asleep. The night after I saw those messages felt like one of the longest of my life. Each word between Aaron and Monika was a dagger in my heart. Reading their messages, their plans, their affection for each other, so carefree and intimate, made me feel physically ill. The thought of seeing any more evidence of betrayal was too much. I threw Aaron's phone back on the nightstand, my hands trembling with a mixture of rage and grief as I lay in bed next to him, pretending to be asleep. It was torture. I wanted so badly to wake him up, confront him right then and there. I imagined myself shaking him awake, demanding answers, or better yet, screaming until I was hoarse, anything to release the storm of emotions that was brewing inside me. But deep down, I knew that Aaron would have an excuse, a story cooked up and ready to serve. He always had a way with words. And that's when it hit me. I needed a plan, a scheme that would expose the true extent of his deception, not only to me but to him as well. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the pain he had caused me. No sudden outbursts or tearful confrontations. This had to be strategic, something that would hit him where it hurt the most. So, I spent the rest of the night plotting, turning over scenarios in my head, each plan more elaborate than the last, until I settled on something. I decided to befriend Monika, get close to her, and find out for myself the web of lies I was up against. Maybe I could even gather enough evidence to turn the tables on their affair. The morning after that sleepless night was strangely serene. Aaron left for work with a hasty kiss that lacked his usual warmth. I felt a mixture of nervous energy and steely determination. I was ready to put my plan into action. The drive to the gym was a blur, my mind reeling with what I was about to do. I pulled into the gym parking lot, the same place I'd seen Aaron and Monika in their embrace. My hands were steady on the wheel, my resolve firm. I rehearsed what I would say to Monika, how I would initially approach her, and then, in my original plan, expose her to her supervisor. It seemed simple enough: walk in, expose the affair, and watch her face crumble. Simple yet satisfying. The gym was bustling with the usual morning crowd. People were lost in their routines, headphones on, in worlds unto themselves. I spotted Monika almost immediately. Her vibrant energy was unmistakable as she laughed with a client. Seeing her so carefree fueled my determination. I steeled myself and started towards her, ready for a confrontation. But just as I was about to reach her, something unexpected happened. Monika's client, an elderly woman whom I recognized from some community events, suddenly lost her balance on the treadmill. Monika's quick reflexes saved the woman from a nasty fall, and she handled the situation with such genuine care and professionalism that I was taken aback. It was a sight I hadn't expected. She was so compassionate and skilled, completely at odds with the home wrecker I had painted in my mind. For a moment, I hesitated. The gym suddenly fell into chaos as other trainers and clients rushed to help, and Monika was right in the middle of it, directing them, making sure the woman was taken care of before anything else. After the woman was taken care of and the commotion died down, Monika turned and her eyes met mine. I moved forward, my original intent simmering beneath a surface of newfound complexity. As I approached, she greeted me with a bright, unsuspecting smile, so dazzling it could have blinded me. "Hello, how are you? Can I help you?" Her voice was warm and inviting. She had no idea I even existed in the context of her relationship with Aaron. The irony was too good to ignore. My accusatory words were suddenly heavy on my tongue. At that moment, my plan shifted from the harsh confrontation I had envisioned. I found myself saying, "Yes, I'm looking for a personal trainer. Can we talk?" I realized that I had to stop myself before I could interrupt her and reveal that I wasn't just some client trying to get in shape, but the wife of her lover. So, I agreed to the conversation rather than make a scene. Monika smiled, her smile widening. "Of course, let's sit down and discuss what you're looking for." Leaving the gym after making this fake appointment, I had a smirk tugging at the corners of my mouth. The irony of the situation was delicious. Monika, the woman who had unwittingly destroyed my marriage, was now scheduled to be my personal trainer. As I drove home, thoughts of our upcoming encounter danced in my head. If only she knew who I really was and the secret agenda I was hiding behind my friendly facade. Our first training session was a mixture of awkwardness for me and professionalism for her. Monika was all smiles. She demonstrated routines and corrected my posture with a gentle touch here and there. It was a strange feeling to play the role of an unsuspecting client who knew all too well the intimate details of her relationship with Aaron. As weeks turned into months, our sessions became a regular part of my life. Monika began to open up about her life, her dreams, and, ironically, her challenges with past relationships. The more I learned about her, the more complex my feelings about her became. She wasn't just the other woman in my husband's life, she was a person with her own stories and struggles. Our relationship evolved beyond the gym. Coffee dates after a sweaty session became our thing. We'd laugh over lattes at silly gym mishaps or debate the best protein bars on the weekends. Sometimes we went shopping, browsing racks of clothes, joking and offering fashion advice like old college friends. During this time, the physical strength I gained from working out was only one aspect of my transformation. Emotionally, I was becoming someone new, more resilient, more self-assured, and somehow more understanding. Monika inadvertently molded me into a stronger version of myself, not just physically but in a way that strengthened my spirit and resolve. With every sip of coffee, every shared smile, I couldn't help but wonder how this would all end. Would the revelation of my true identity shatter the bond we had formed? Or would it somehow free us both from the lies that had entangled our lives? These thoughts haunted me, but I pushed them aside and focused on the present, the strength I was gaining and the intricate dance of friendship and deception that was unfolding. It was a game of emotional chess, and I made my moves with cautious precision. As the weeks passed, Aaron couldn't help but notice the changes in me. It wasn't just the obvious physical transformation, the toned arms, the firmer stance, the way my clothes hung a little looser around a slimmer waist. There was more to it. There was a new light in my eyes, a spark of something he hadn't seen in a long time, something that reminded him of the woman he had fallen in love with, only stronger and more confident. Every time I spoke of my new friend, the mysterious personal trainer who was helping me find myself again, I could see the suspicious curiosity in his eyes. He'd never met Monika, of course. I kept her identity and our sessions vague, adding a deliberate mystique to keep him on edge. "She's just amazing, so inspiring," I'd say in passing over dinner, watching his expression change as a mixture of intrigue and unease played across his features. This wasn't part of my original plan, but I couldn't deny the satisfaction it gave me. Aaron's growing fascination with my new life had an unexpected but welcome side effect. He began to pull away. Perhaps intimidated by my found independence, or perhaps out of guilt, fearing that his own secrets would unravel as I embraced this new version of myself, his texts became less frequent. His late nights became shorter, and his mentions of the gym carried a hint of obligation rather than enthusiasm. Monika, for her part, seemed unaware of the change in Aaron's behavior as he stepped back. With more time on her hands, she often chose to spend it with me. But with each passing day, as our friendship grew, so did my internal conflict. The lines between deception and real connection blurred, leaving me to grapple with the unfolding moral complexity of my actions. Was causing Aaron's guilt and confusion worth the potential cost of betraying someone who, despite everything, had become a true friend? One evening was tinged with an unusual tension. Aaron lingered at the door, watching me with a mixture of hope and despair. The usual hum of our home felt quieter, more charged. Maybe it was the way the sunset cast shadows across the living room, or perhaps it was the unspoken words hanging between us. But everything felt different. "How about dinner at our favorite restaurant?" he asked. "Of course, I'll be home by 6 o'clock. So we can spend some quality time together and eat some delicious food, huh?" His voice had that old, familiar warmth, but the edges were frayed with fear. As he spoke, he reached out and gently massaged my hair in a way he knew I once loved. It felt like a plea, a subtle plea for the evening to erase the distance between us, for things to go back to the way they were, a distance that he surely felt but couldn't understand. I paused, feeling the weight of his gaze, heavy with unasked questions. My answer was ready, part of the script I had been silently writing in my head over the past few months. "I have plans with a friend, but I really want to. Since I can't break my word, this is essential. Maybe another time." I said the words light and airy, as if I were talking about something as mundane as a coffee date, not dropping the bombshell that I had someone new in my life. The smile I offered was just wide enough to seem friendly but hide the turbulence underneath. I picked up my purse and felt his gaze intensify, burning into me with a mixture of confusion and the dawning realization of what I had just said. As I turned toward the door, I could feel the shift in the air, the slight catch of his breath, the soft shuffling of his feet. Aaron's confusion was palpable. His voice faltered as he repeated, "Friend?" The word hung awkwardly between us, heavy and out of place. His eyes searched mine for a joke, a hint that this was just a playful jab like the ones we used to share. But all he found was my back as I walked toward the door. The click of my heels underscored this new distance between us. As I stepped outside, I couldn't help but suppress a chuckle, not from amusement but at the sheer surrealness of the moment. Here I was, spinning tales and weaving webs, playing a role that I could never have imagined months ago. The evening air was cool, a gentle breeze playing through the trees, a stark contrast to the heated confusion I had left behind. I walked to my car, parked under the flickering streetlight at the end of our driveway. The silence was profound, a silent witness to the pivotal moment. I sat there for a moment, letting the weight of my decision sink in. This was more than a dinner invitation, it was the next pivotal move in a game of calculated risks and hidden motives. I pulled out my phone and found Monika's number, hesitating for a second. This dinner could cement our friendship or set the stage for the end of my carefully laid plans. The screen lit up as I dialed, casting a glow in the dim light of the car. Monika answered after a few rings, her voice bright and cheery. "Hey Monika, I was thinking. Why don't we celebrate our friendship? How about dinner at that fancy restaurant? It's been such a great journey getting to know you, and I think we deserve a little celebration, just the two of us girls," I said, putting a cheerful tone into my voice, masking the undercurrent of my true intentions. "Wonderful, Victoria, I'd love to. When were you thinking?" Monika's enthusiasm was genuine, and for a brief moment I felt a pang of guilt for the deception. "Tomorrow evening works for me. 7 o'clock? Sounds good," I suggested, already planning the sequence of events in my mind. "Perfect, it's a date." "Then I'll see you," she replied, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Great, it's a date," I echoed, my words laced with double meaning. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my car for a while, going over the details of what was to come. The restaurant I had chosen was classy and intimate, an ideal setting for what I had planned. It was popular enough to be a bustling place but not so crowded as to draw attention to our conversation. I started the car and drove off, the engine's purr a steady background to my racing thoughts. Tomorrow's dinner would be a turning point. Either way, it would advance my plans or expose cracks in my resolve, but either way I was ready. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life, about stepping out of the shadows of deceit and into a light of my own making. The night of the dinner was draped in an almost cinematic allure. The city lights twinkled like distant stars, and the restaurant was bathed in the soft, warm glow of chandeliers. The tables were set with crisp linens and sparkling glassware, creating a sophisticated but inviting atmosphere. I arrived a few minutes early and took a moment to absorb the setting. Every detail sharpened my anticipation for what was about to unfold. Monika arrived, her face radiant, her smile wide as she approached the table. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and for a moment, it was easy to forget the complex web of deceit that had brought us here. We exchanged pleasantries and sat down. The clinking of glasses marked the beginning of what was supposed to be a celebratory dinner. She was about to propose a toast to our friendship, her glass raised in anticipation, when the unexpected happened. The restaurant door opened and Aaron made his entrance. It was like a scene out of a movie, unexpected, dramatic, and perfectly timed. "Monika, what are you doing here?" The look on his face when he saw us together was a mixture of confusion and shock. His steps faltered as he tried to process the scene before him. "Do you know each other?" Aaron's expression of utter horror was striking. The room seemed to stand still. The background noise faded to a hush as all eyes turned to our table. I saw regret wash over him. Monika's glass floated in the air, her smile fading to a look of confusion. She turned to me, her eyes searching for an explanation, then back to Aaron, trying to gauge his reaction. The air was thick with tension. Each second stretched into eternity as the pieces began to fall into place in her mind. Dressed in a gorgeous red outfit that accentuated my found confidence, I maintained my composure. My face was a mask of serene confidence, though my heart was racing. But on the outside, I was the picture of calm. "Aaron, how unexpected to see you here," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil bubbling beneath the surface. Aaron approached our table. His initial shock gave way to a cautious curiosity. "I didn't know you two knew each other," he said, his eyes darting between us, searching for answers in our expressions. The situation was ripe with irony. The secret connections and hidden truths all converged in this unexpected public confrontation. Monika put down her glass, her cheerful demeanor replaced by a growing realization of the gravity of the situation. "We're good friends," she managed to say, her voice tinged with a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. The waiter approached, oblivious to the drama swirling around our table, and cheerfully asked if we were ready to order. It was almost comical, this return to the mundane after such a dramatic revelation. Aaron waved him away, his mind clearly focused elsewhere on the unfolding drama. As Aaron stood there, the pieces of the puzzle came together in his mind. I could see the conflict on his face, surprise, betrayal, realization. It was all there, a silent testament to the complexity of human emotion. As the tension reached a palpable level, I decided it was time to take control of the evening. I took a spoon and tapped gently against my glass. The clear, crisp sound cut through the buzz of the restaurant. Heads turned towards us. Curious eyes and hushed whispers filled the room as I prepared to address the situation. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice steady and projecting a confidence that I felt was crucial at this moment. "Let me introduce myself as Victoria and say how much I appreciate these two individuals in my life." I gestured gracefully to Aaron and Monika and gave them each a nod that was both acknowledging and measured. The room fell into a deeper silence. The patrons and staff alike sensed the unfolding drama. "I appreciate you both for accepting my invitation to dinner. Tonight, Aaron and Monika, I would like to share something." I continued, pausing for a moment when I noticed Aaron's nervous hand movements. He was fidgeting with his napkin, his discomfort visible to all. This pause was intentional, a moment to let the weight of my words sink in, not just for Aaron and Monika but for everyone within earshot. The tap of the glass had served not only to silence the room but also to strengthen my determination as I stood there with all eyes on me. I felt a mixture of empowerment and inevitable sadness. This was not just a revelation, it was an acknowledgement of the significant changes in my life and relationships. "I've learned a lot about honesty and integrity over the past few months," I continued, sweeping my eyes over the audience and settling on Aaron and Monika. "Tonight is about truth and revelation. It's about understanding that the choices we make affect not only our lives but those around us. Aaron, Monika, you both have been instrumental in teaching me these lessons." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning and implications. Aaron's eyes widened slightly, a hint of fear or perhaps realization dawning on him. Monika, always the composed one, maintained a steady, if somewhat strained, smile. But her eyes were cautious, wary, wondering what I might reveal next at this dinner. I said, pausing to collect my thoughts, "This is my way of saying thank you for the lessons, for the pain, and for the strength I've gained. It was necessary, and it has prepared me for a new chapter. My voice was calm but carried an undercurrent of deep emotion that I could feel bubbling just below the surface. As the dinner guests around us resumed their muted chatter, I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a more intimate register, ensuring that Aaron and Monika could hear every word. Clearly, I have undergone a spiritual and physical transformation in the last 3 months, I began, fixing my gaze on Aaron. His eyes were flickering with a cocktail of emotions, regret, fear, perhaps a touch of admiration. Aaron, my love, you saw the change, and we were right. His eyes darted away, unable to hold my gaze, showing his discomfort as he adjusted his collar, a subtle acknowledgement of my words. Turning slightly, I addressed Monika, who had so far maintained a calm facade. Now, Monika, my dear friend. You had no idea how important you were to my greater plan. Her expression, which had been one of polite attention, cracked just a little at the corners of her eyes. Her smile tightened and faltered. There was a subtle shift in her posture as she leaned back slightly, as if the weight of my words physically affected her. Monika's face was a canvas of confusion and dawning realization. The atmosphere at the table thickened, charged with the tension of my revelations. The clatter of cutlery and the murmur of voices around us seemed to fade into the background as our private drama unfolded in its own quiet storm. I continued, my voice softer now, more reflective. You see, each step of my journey, every session at the gym, every coffee, every shopping trip, it wasn't just about rebuilding myself or forming a friendship. It was about setting the stage, about creating a scenario where the truths could no longer remain hidden. As I spoke these words, I could see the wheels turning in Monika's mind, the pieces falling into place. As the pieces fell into place, her initial shock was replaced by a deeper, more resigned understanding. She looked from me to Aaron and back again. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but with a kind of pained acceptance. Meanwhile, Aaron sat frozen. His former nervous energy was now silenced by the gravity of my words. He knew in that moment that the dynamics of our relationships, his with Monika, mine with him, and my unlikely friendship with her, had been irrevocably altered. The facade had not only cracked but shattered, revealing the dark and complicated truths beneath. I have found someone new who loves me for who I am, I said, pausing to savor the moment. As if on cue, an elegant man walked into the restaurant with almost perfect timing. He came right up to our table and took my hand. His warm touch was all I needed to make my announcement, meet Jack. Jack's appearance was met with a mixture of amazement and skepticism from those seated around the table. As for you, Aaron, I began, my voice calm and determined. I'm getting a divorce. I paused, letting the words hang between us, strong and undeniable. Remember our prenup, the one that penalizes cheating. My eyes held his unflinching as I watched the realization dawn, seeing the color drain from his face. He opened his mouth, perhaps to object or to plead, but no words came out. Then I turned my attention to Monika. Thanks to my newfound resources, I have all the evidence I need, so everything you own will soon be mine. Monika, who had been a silent spectator to my revelation to Aaron, had her face a mask of controlled emotion, but her eyes betrayed a hint of fear and uncertainty about what my words would mean for her. Of course, I'll tell your boss. Everything, my dear Monika, I continued, the tone of my voice softer yet just as firm. It's not a good idea to try to steal someone's husband. I'm sorry, but it looks like you're going to have to find a new gym. Her reaction was subtle, a tightening of her jaw and a fleeting look of resignation. This was not the outcome she had expected when she got involved with Aaron, and now she was facing the professional consequences. The table was silent in the wake of these decisions. The tension hung like a thick fog around us. Meanwhile, the rest of the restaurant carried on, oblivious. The clinking of glasses and the murmur of conversation seemed a distant backdrop. I looked between Aaron and Monika, watching the effect of my words on them. This was not just a confrontation but a declaration of my newfound strength and independence. I softened my tone slightly, not out of sympathy but out of a desire to end this chapter with some semblance of dignity. We had good times, Aaron, but you chose this path. I wish things could have been different. The atmosphere in the restaurant was charged as the finality of my words sank in. Monika's previously composed face now reflected a mixture of shock and dawning understanding as she realized her role in the narrative I had carefully constructed. Her shock was palpable, her eyes wide as she grappled with the realization that she had been used in my broader strategy. Across from her, Aaron's complexion turned a ghostly pallor. His features were etched with disbelief and despair. He opened his mouth to say something, perhaps an apology or an explanation, but the words seemed to fail him. "Vic, I'm so," he began, his voice a hoarse whisper. But I was not there to listen to half-hearted apologies or excuses. "I've had enough of this," I interrupted sharply, my tone final, leaving no room for ambiguity. My words cut through the tense air, severing any hope Aaron might have had that this could be fixed. Monika, still reeling from the revelation, made an attempt to apologize, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't," I cut her off. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before getting involved with a married man." The edge in my voice came not only from bitterness but also from a reborn sense of self-worth, a declaration that I would no longer be a victim in anyone's story, including my own. As Aaron and Monika gathered their things, their movements were sluggish, weighed down by their own guilt and regret. They left the restaurant. Their exit was quiet, almost pitiful, in stark contrast to the bombastic drama that had just unfolded at the table. With Jack, the friend who had stood by me, we watched their departure. It felt like a symbolic closure to the chaos that had turned my life upside down. We then turned to each other with a knowing look. We raised our glasses. The crystal caught the light and sparkled as brightly as the resolve in our eyes. To honesty, new love, and perfect revenge, I toasted. The words felt like a proclamation of my new beginning. Jack echoed the sentiment, his smile supportive and understanding as we clinked glasses. The sounds of the restaurant gradually returned to my awareness, the soft hum of conversation, the gentle music playing in the background, and the hustle and bustle of life around us. This toast wasn't just about celebrating the demise of those who had wronged me. It was a celebration of rebirth, of regaining control of my narrative and stepping into a future where I was the author of my own life story.